Welcome to A Few Thoughts About, the show where we dig into thinking and how it shapes our experience of life. Each week, I share insights and observations to get you thinking. No long lectures, just quick, thought-provoking episodes to shift perspectives so that you can make the change you want to make. Let's get into it. Hey, so before we get started, I want to invite you to try something out, right? One of the things that I get questioned about all the time is like, what is it actually like to work with a coach? Like, what does it feel like? How do you engage with it? And so I put this intro course together to give you a taste of that, to give you a taste of some of the things that I like to talk about and work on. And so this course, and it's totally free, completely free, is about thought, is about working with thought and what you can do to change how you feel right now. And a lot of this stuff is stuff that I talk about with my clients, especially in the beginning. This can be incredibly helpful if you're just looking for a free way to sort of reframe or change the way you think. Check this out. So you can go to scottpeniard.com/intro, INTRO, and you can get signed up. It's totally free, and it's a great way for you to just get a taste of what some of this stuff is like. So scottpeniard.com/intro. Go check it out. I'd love to have you try it out. That's it for now. Let's start the show. Well, hello there, and welcome to A Few Thoughts About Rock Bottom. Rock bottom. I love talking about this topic because, well, partially it makes me mad. I'll get into all of this. Partially the idea makes me mad. Partially I have some very vivid memories of this concept from my journey that I want to share with people because I think it's really, really important that we kind of bring this concept out into the light. And I also want to talk about it because I want people to see this differently. You know, this is a topic, by the way, this was recommended by listener Shane. So thank you, Shane, for recommending this topic. I cannot believe I haven't spoken about it. This podcast has been going for almost a year, and I haven't talked about this topic yet. And this is one that gets me kind of revved up. So thank you, Shane, for that recommendation. I want to talk about this because I think it has a huge impact on all of us. So let's just dig into it. First of all, what exactly is a rock bottom? Well, here, certainly in the States, and I think this is true in a lot of places in the world, we have this concept that if things get bad enough, that then a drinker will change. And this is specifically targeted at drinking. However, this is applicable to a lot of different things. This is sort of a general attitude that I think people have toward change. But it's this idea that when things are bad enough, when we make things as painful as possible, that's when someone's going to change. And almost to the point for a lot of people that it's this idea that we need a rock bottom, that there has to be a place, right? And so this idea, it's deeply ingrained. And so we'll talk to people, you can even hear, if you've ever heard people talk about someone who is struggling with alcohol, they'll say things like, oh, I don't think they've hit bottom yet. Or, I don't think that it's gotten bad enough for them to change. And this idea is so difficult for me for so many reasons. Now, let me just start with my own personal experience of it, because this is the piece that probably gets me revved up the most. I remember being in a place in my journey where I was basically waiting for something bad to happen. I had tried quitting drinking so many times in so many different ways. I was struggling with it for a long time. I could see that things, my wife and my kids were also not benefiting, to put it lightly, from my continued drinking. And I kept drinking and I didn't feel like I was able to stop. And I finally got to this place where I said to myself, man, something's going to have to stop me. Right. And that's really what this idea is, that something is so bad that it stops us from drinking. And so I found myself in this very strange situation where I was literally sitting around hoping that something bad would happen to me, so that something good could happen to me. Just to repeat that. Like, I was hoping that something bad would happen to me, some sort of event, some sort of thing that would be interpreted as a rock bottom. I was hoping that would happen so that something good would happen to me, which is I would quit drinking. And I had this idea from society. We see it all the time, right? We see, shows like Intervention where people are using, all different types of substances, by the way, not just alcohol. And their lives are falling apart. There's all types of disasters happening all over the place. And even their family gets together and they write all these letters and they almost try to force the issue by, we're going to cut you off and all of this stuff. And it's all so well intentioned. But it's funny because for those of us who are in the position I was in, sitting around and waiting for that to happen, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And it's frustrating especially because it's not necessary. All that is necessary to make a change is to desire to make a change. Yes, it is absolutely true that it can be frustrating. Yes, it is absolutely true that it can be attempt after attempt after attempt after attempt. And there's a ton of help and support out there. Lots of places you can join to like have this conversation and be part of it. All of that is the process. Sitting around and waiting for a rock bottom like I did. I mean, I tempted fate, truly. Like I really feel like I did. I really feel like I spent a lot of time hoping for this bad thing to happen that might shake me out of my stupor, that might shake me out of this way of living that I'd become so accustomed to. And so this concept of a rock bottom is also kind of silly because one man's rock bottom is another man's, next step in the chain, right? If you really think about it and you expand this out, there really is only like one rock bottom, right? Which is dying. Right? Everything else along the way that we can see as a rock bottom isn't necessarily a rock bottom. It's only a rock bottom if we decide to turn around. And that I find is like the sort of catch of the whole thing, right? That like you can talk to people and like I've talked to people who said like, oh, I got a DUI and like that was it. That was their rock bottom, right? I've talked to other people that have like, I've had 3 DUIs and 2 divorces. And it wasn't until I was told there was something wrong with my liver that I quit. Well, what's the difference in those two things? The only difference is when someone like decided to start on the process. And by the way, I want to be very clear. It's not about deciding to quit, right? It's about deciding to get that help and support. And so that's the thing that's kind of false about this idea of a rock bottom is that it's almost like we think that it has to happen and then something magically gets bestowed upon us where we can finally do this thing. And I don't think that's the case whatsoever. I think it's actually when we have the ability to make the decision, we make the decision and we move in that direction. So we don't have to wait for something bad to happen in our lives. We don't have to think like, oh man, I can't wait till my rock bottom comes. I've had so many people tell me this. I've had so many people say, I can't wait until my rock bottom gets here. And it's so funny if you step back and look at it. Like I look at myself saying the same thing and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like I didn't need that. None of us need that. None of us need that outside force to come and smack us up against the head. All we need is to be able to be in a place where we can be supported and we can have these conversations. That's what makes change happen. It isn't some cataclysmic event. And so that's when I hear people talk about this concept of rock bottom, it gets me kind of revved up because I know, like I said, one man's rock bottom is just another step in the chain for someone else. And the only thing that makes that difference is that at some point, something made one person decide to turn toward help and someone else decided to keep going, right? At the end of the day, there is always support available. There's always somewhere you can go. And all you need to do, you don't need to wait for a rock bottom. All you need to do is keep trying. All you need to do is keep working toward it and you will get there. This is the thing that like, I've talked to a lot of people who have had traditional, what you would call traditional rock bottom experiences. Lots of life upheaval and all of that. I've talked to plenty of people who have had that, but I've talked to more people who haven't, right? I've talked to more people who've, just been like, I've been struggling with this for a long time. things have gotten bad, but there's not like a moment, there's not like a road to Damascus moment, as people talk about. It just happens, right? Like we do the work and things change. So I don't want you to think that you need to have a rock bottom. I don't want you to wait for that. As a matter of fact, there's no need to. The only thing that makes a rock bottom is that it's the point where we make a decision to turn toward help. That's what you can do today. You don't have to wait for it. And as a matter of fact, and this is true, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm not going to go into my story now, but not long after I graduated college, it became evident to me, like, oh, like this is probably not okay. Like this drinking is probably not okay. It was another 12 years till I fucking did anything about it. And it makes me wonder, like, what would have happened if in that moment when I said it wasn't okay, but I pushed it off, right? Because it wasn't, the quote unquote bad things weren't happening, right? I didn't have that rock bottom. I wasn't there yet, right? That's how I was thinking at the time. But then I was thinking, like, well, what if when I realized it first wasn't okay, what if I had changed then? I mean, that's a decade and a half plus that things would have been different. It's always available to us. We don't need to wait for that thing. You don't need to wait. So if you have been waiting, I want to encourage you, consider putting down whatever the finish line is you're thinking about, right? I want to ask you to consider to let go of whatever this rock bottom thing is. If you know that you want to make a change, start working to make a change. At the end of the day, the change comes within you anyway. And the people that I see be the most motivated are the people who are internally motivated. And you already have that. Rock bottom isn't necessary. Rock bottom isn't required. As a matter of fact, any of us can decide to turn the ship. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's why there's help and support out there. So if you are like me and you are sitting there right now waiting for a rock bottom, I want to encourage you to let go of that idea and turn toward what you can do to start making that change now. Well, that's it from me. Let me know what you think. Send me an email. scottpiniard.com/podcast is a place to reach out to me. There you can suggest podcast episodes as well. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll be back again next week.